Shalom everybody. In today's video, we will be going into a deep dive on secrets of Lilith, secrets of the Leviathan, secrets of color, creation, aspects of birth, and more. With that being said, this draws us to the conclusion of the first half of Likutei. The second half is going to deal with an incredibly lofty sefer called Sefer Asod or Azina Satan, the secret mystery of the Satan, which will begin in our next video. As with all of these videos, a free PDF of this sefer is available via a QR code that you can scan during the intro segment to this video. Physical copies are made available on bookbaby.com and, of course, Amazon.com, all the proceeds of which are donated to Tzedakah. In addition, a public WhatsApp group has been made where announcements and behind-the-scenes looks at some of the projects that are being manifested are shared. If you would like to join there, I will leave a link to all of those things down below. So without further ado, let's begin. We read, our sages instituted 481 schools of Talmud. This is because the value of Talmud is 480. This is the value of the word Lilith. Talmud is spelled Tav, Lamed, Mem, Vav, Dalet, which is 400 plus 30 plus 40 plus 6 plus 4, which equals 480. Lilith is a numerical value of 480. Lamed is 30, Yud is 10, Lamed is 30, Yud is 10, and Tav is 400. As Rav Nachman states, this was to break the klipa of Lilith. Regarding this, Tikkun Zohar states in Tikkun 44, Genesis chapter 1 verse 16, lights, me'arot, without the vav, means without the written Torah. What is me'arot? What are these lights? When it is written without the vav, it is Lilith, who spreads into 70 facets of the Torah. And in another place, Zohar book 1 says, what is me'arot? Lights? It is Amaret, the divine word. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov expresses the secret of the Talmud and its relation to Lilith in Likutei Maharan here. We can see on page 213, regarding the footnotes of lesson 12, it states, no, he said, even today, if Torah study is conducted properly, it still has its great protective powers. But if not, if a person does not study as he should, God forbid, then his studying only serves to strengthen the other side. This is especially the case when that which he studies is the Talmud. This is because Talmud has the numerical value as the klipa, evil force known as Lilith, value 480. Thus, Talmud can either subdue the klipa or cause the person to be subdued by it. The Midrash, Eicharabah 2:4, teaches that prior to the destruction of the Second Temple, there were 481 study houses in Jerusalem. The Torah's outnumbering the klipa Lilith alludes to the power which holiness has to subdue the evil forces. And also in Tikkun Zohar it states the following. Tikkun 44. Genesis chapter 1 verse 14, Me'orot, is spelled without a vav. The missing vav, alludes to the lack of the written Torah, which was explained earlier in the gates, referring to Zerainpin. He asks, what is Me'orot? He answers, it is the oral Torah, Malkut. And though it has been explained in Zohar Bereshis A 390 that Me'orot with a missing vav alludes to Lilith, the Malkuth of impurity. And it is seemingly contradictory because here he explained it is as alluding to Malkuth of holiness. Nevertheless, there are 70 facets of the Torah. Now we just learned in Tikkun HaZohar that Lilith was in the secret of Malkuth and the oral Torah. We also just saw its relation with the word Talmud, and the reason why our sages instituted 481 schools of Talmud. Now, further explanations of Lilith. When describing the tabernacle, which is associated with Malkuth, as was just identified, it is written, the length of each plank was 10 cubits, the width of each plank a cubit and a half. And for the other side of the wall, the north side, 20 planks. Of the planks of the tabernacle, they made 20 planks for the south side. And the rear of the tabernacle to the west, they made 6 planks. And they made 2 planks for the corners of the tabernacle at the rear. The tabernacle is determined by its boards, 20 to the north, 20 to the south, 6 to the west, and 2 for the corners. This is a total of 48 boards, and the length of each board is 10 cubits. Thus, there are a secret of 480 cubits, which is the value of Lilith. So we find it hidden in the dimensions of the tabernacle. That is to say, 20 boards to the north, 20 boards to the south, which is 40, 6 boards to the west, which is 46, and 2 boards, which are the corners. That's 48. The length of each board was 10 cubits, and so 48 times 10 is 480. Continuing forward, now let us go into the origins of Lilith. The Zohar states in Achemot, verse 281, but Yehudah still rules with El and is faithful with the holy ones, Hosea chapter 12, verse 1. When Yehudah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, Bereshis 38:15. As the verse states, likewise the way of an adulterous woman, Mishlei chapter 30, verse 20, because she had covered her face, Bereshis chapter 38, verse 15. We have learned that she had covered her face, meaning similar to what you say, she eats and wipes her mouth, Mishlei chapter 30, verse 20. She torched the world with her flames and says, I have done nothing wrong. What is the reason? It is because she had covered her face, and no one knows her ways in order to save themselves from her. And he turned to her by the way, Bereshis chapter 38, verse 16. To the way literally, to make white join with red, and say, I pray you, let me come into you. He established that let me always means invitation. That is to say, he sought to unite the right, which is white, and join with red, which is the left. This is in the secret of the ways of Malkut, which mixes these two things. Achremot, verse 282. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law, Kala, meaning the destruction, Kalia, of the world, as translated into Aramaic, which means that he did not know she was destroying the world, as Kala is derived from Kalia, meaning the word bride or daughter-in-law. Here, Kala is associated with the Aramaic Kalia, meaning destroyer. Why did he not know? Because she welcomed him so as to receive from him. She came here to alleviate and bestow mercy upon the world. Another explanation for she was his daughter-in-law is literally a bride, Kala, as it is written, my bride, Kala, with me from Lebanon. Shir Hashirim, chapter 4, verse 8. Lebanon is the supernal whiteness of Chokmah, the Simsum. And the bride, an example Kala, which is identified here as Kalia, the destroyer, emerges from this whiteness, hinting to the Simsum and the restriction, as will be discussed very soon. Achremot, verse 283. And she said, what will you give me that you may come into me? Bereshit chapter 38, verse 16. Now the bride needs jewels. And he said, I will send you a kid from the flock. This is like a king who had a son born to him from a maidservant who used to walk about the palace. The king wanted to marry a lady from high nobility and bring her to the palace. So she said, who allowed this one in the king's presence? The king said, from now on, I will expel the son of the maidservant from my place. Achremot, verse 284. Also here I will send you a kid from the flock. We established what is meant by a kid, as in the verse, you shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. Shemos, chapter 34, verse 26. It refers to the other side that nurses from Malchus before she is purified. And all these stem from the firstborn of cattle. Therefore it is not written, I will give, but I will send, meaning, I will expel and send it away, so it shall not be in my palace. Chumah, verse 674. Outside of the king's palace was a harlot who was very beautiful to behold. After a few days, the king said, I want to see the wishes of my son toward me. He called that harlot and told her, go and entice my son in order to test the wishes of my son towards me. What did that harlot do? She went after the king's son and started to embrace him and kiss him and entice him with all kinds of enticements. If that son is proper and observes the commands of his father, he scolds her and does not listen to her and thrusts her away from him. Then the father rejoices with his son, brings him into the inner sanctum of his palace, and gives him presents and gifts and great honor. Who caused all this honor for that son? We must say that it was the harlot. Chumah, verse 675. He questions, does that harlot deserve praise for this or not? He says, certainly she deserves praise from all aspects, for she did the king's command, and she brought that son all the good, all this love of the king toward him. Therefore it is written, and behold, it was very good. Bereshit chapter 1, verse 31. And behold, it was good refers to the angel of life, while very refers to the angel of death. The evil inclination was certainly very good, for he who fulfills the command of his master. Come and see. If there would not be this enticer, then the righteous would not inherit those supernal treasures that are their share in the world to come. And it came to pass about 3 months after. He questions, what is meant by 3 months? He answers, after a tripled month. The 3 months are Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, as we have established. Here it is written, about 3 months, meaning as the 4th month began, denoting Malchus. An example, the 4th letter of the divine name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. To stir up the judgments in the world due to the sins of mankind, and to nurture from the other side. Then it was told Judah, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, Kala, has played the harlot. So we see that the harlot is associated with Kala. So the bride is found on the other side. It is written, bring her out, as the verse says, and cast down from heaven to earth the beauty of Israel. Aicha, chapter 2, verse 1. And let her be burnt, Bereshit, chapter 38, verse 24, with a flaming fire in exile. The passage that was just cited is found in Book 11 of the Zohar in a section called Truma. And it is seen here, the story outside of the king's palace was a harlot, etc. And it states at the end, who caused all this honor for that son? We must say that it was the harlot. As we can see here, Chachi Zonah. And it continues. He questions, does that harlot deserve praise for this or not? And he says, certainly she deserves praise from all aspects, for she did the king's command, and she brought that son all the good, all this love of the king towards him. And it ends with, if there would not be this enticer, then the righteous would not inherit those supernal treasures that are their share in the world to come. The first portion, when describing the secrets of Kala and Kalia, it is found in book 15 in the section called Achremot. And it says over here on 281, again, when Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot. This harlot, as we can see in the Aramaic, is Zonah, the same harlot that was hinted at in Truma. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law, Kala, meaning the destruction, Kalia, of the world, as translated into Aramaic, which means that he did not know she was destroying the world, as Kala is derived from Kalia. Why did he not know? Because she welcomed him so as to receive from him. She came there to alleviate and bestow mercy upon the world. Another explanation for she was his daughter-in-law is literally a bride, Kala, meaning my bride Kala with me from Lebanon, Shir Hashirim chapter 4 verse 8. This will be touched on and is this secret and key to the understanding. It continues, thus Lilith is the secret of the harlot, and she is called Kala and Kalia, meaning wife and destroyer, or bride and destroyer. She is identified in the Hindu religion as Kalima, which is also called Kalia or Kali, and is personified as such. Now to explain her origin, she is called death, being born from death, which means descent, and this refers to the first Simsum from which she was emanated, being black. Thus it is written of her, do not look upon me, for I am black. She is associated with the Simsum because it says, come with me, my bride from Lebanon, as was mentioned before. From this, we learn that when things die, it becomes black. And also when one passes away, their eyes close to behold black. This is why our sages stated that sleep is 1/10 of death. And consider very carefully this principle. When things rot, they turn to black. When one dies, they see black. And when one sleeps, they see black. Now, on page 480, which is also the numerical value of Lilith, there is a symbolic representation of the aforementioned concepts. Not to confuse this with a deity, God forbid, but rather to explain the origin of some of these concepts. We see the restriction and the Simsum, and we see its restriction in the secret of the blackness. It is very important to understand the nature of the restriction, that it was a vacancy that was created in order to bring forth a place for existence. We see here the term Kala, bride. On the top left and the bottom left corners are the passages from Achremot which describe this. Now, it continues. Lilith is the seeker of the first Simsum, and at this time the surrounding endless did not pour into the restriction. This is like a woman who is put away during the time of her uncleanliness. The receiver is considered the female as it is known. Thus the surrounding light did not enter into the Simsum until the completion of the withdrawal, and thus the emanations of those things that took place at that time. Our sages also said of this that Adam sinned in his mind, How so? Because at the time the light had entered into the Simsum, the female was not settled, and so it was said that he spilled seed, etc. The restriction, or the Simsum, takes place at the level of the Chokmah of the Ancient of Days, as it has been made known in prior videos. That being said, it was said that Adam, an example the Adam Kadmon, which is also personified with the Simsum, sinned in his mind. An example, Chokmah, or the restriction, being the place of the mind of the Ancient Holy One. We see in this secret that the female was not settled, and she was put away during the time of her uncleanliness, meaning that the surrounding endless had not poured into this environment through the secret of the Ora Yashar, the straight light, and because of this, there was no zivug, there was no connection. Now, Lilith is the secret of the Partzuf Leah, and so the name Leah hints to this, because Leah, the head letters, are a secret of Lilith et Kabbalah, Lilith at the above, which will be touched on later. This is what was stated: "Come with me, my bride Kala, from Lebanon." And it was stated regarding her, he was not aware she was destroying worlds. This is because she is the Simsum, and all the worlds are brought into existence within the Simsum. Thus all things brought into existence in this place will be destroyed, as it is written, "The heaven will pass away, and also the earth will pass away," etc. Thus she was called the Zona, the harlot, because all things mingle, as it were, with death. Thus all will go down to her, as it were. She is the bride, Kala, and she is concealed in the other side. And thus, as it was explained, the restriction is the place where all of the worlds come into existence, and she was called a harlot and associated with death and destroying, because the Simsum was the destruction of many worlds, the withdrawing of God's light, which was likened to death. And another place she's associated with death, which means descent. She is called a Zona, a harlot, because death intermingles with everything. This is the secret of, "Do not look upon me, for I am black," because everything that is brought into existence within the Simsum ultimately perishes. And because it perishes, it intermingles with that blackness. She is the female, and she is called the bride because she is the receiver from the surrounding endless. Now, everything passing away is also in the secret of, "Lift your eyes to the heavens above and to the earth below, and behold, the heaven will pass away like a vapor, and the earth will pass away like a garment," as mentioned in Yeshayahu. It continues. "When the light poured in, it did so in the secret of whiteness, and therefore that white was the secret of Rachel, which means sheep, as it is known, and it is white. Thus it is written of her that she is the daughter of Lavan." An example, that Rachel is the daughter of Lavan, and Lavan means white. This is also the secret of, "Come with me, my bride, from Lebanon," as was explained above. As she was brought forth during the time of the whiteness had entered of Chokmah. Thus we find that the upper chamber is called the bridal chamber, and this was like the consummation of a marriage, an example, the marriage of creation, because the endless would consummate existence with the Simsum, or the restriction. Simsum, or contraction, is also likened to the birthing process that occurs within inside of the womb, in which a woman experiences contractions. This is the secret of the rainbow garment, and the light that poured in differentiated itself and was intermingled with white. And the rainbow that is round about the throne, as well as the rainbow garment that was given to Yosef, an archetype of Mashiach, by Rachel. We see Rachel alludes to Lilith in a secondary state, and thus Rachel is Rashona Kawa Lilith. An example, Rachel are the head letters for the phrase, "the first Eve Lilith." We find when the straight light poured in, the colors differentiated themselves, as was explained before, and thus this personifies the second aspect of Lilith's nature, that aspect of the Shekhinah, that aspect of Rachel, which is in the secret of the rainbow. And so we find white mixes with blue, white mixes with red, white mixes with yellow, white mixes with green, white mixes with orange, and white mixes with black. These are the Sfirot, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yisod. We see that white mixes with blue, and so with water. And so we see this in the white and blue of the ocean, and also the white and blue of the sky. We see white mixes with red, an example, flesh. And so we see this in the white and red of the flesh. We see that white mixed with yellow, an example, the sun that is yellow, and the moon which is white. We see white mixed with green, an example, leaves, and the chlorophyll when they bleed, which is white. White mixed with orange, an example, we see this in carrots, whose roots are white, pumpkins and squashes, etc., and the seed which is white. And white mixed with black, an example, the night sky, which is black alongside white stars. And so we see the two stages. We see the first stage of the restriction, which is the aspect of Lilith, an example, that aspect of, do not look upon me for I am black. And the second aspect in which the straight light pours in, and white mixes with every single color, and every color with the white, white with blue, white with red, white with yellow, white with green, white with orange, white with black, in the secret of the rainbow garment, in the secret of the second stage of the Shekhinah, which is Rachel. We saw the two stages, an example, the time before she's prepared, and the time in which she is prepared. The time in which she is in the aspect of the restriction, and the time when she is in the aspect of the filling. Consider very carefully what was stated. Consider how everything that is inside of the Tzimtzum will be destroyed. Understand the secret of why she's considered a harlot, why she's called the Zona, and the secret of do not look upon me for I am black. Consider how when something rots, it is black. Consider how when you go to sleep, you see black, and consider how when we die, we will see blackness. Consider how death intermingles with everything. Now also consider the secret of this rainbow garment, this white light. Consider how within the white light are 7 rays of color. An example, pass a white light through the prism and behold the colors. Also consider how the white mixed and differentiated itself with every color. An example, blue, red, yellow, green, orange, and black. The white with blue, go look at the sky and the water. The white with red, look at flesh and the tendons and the fat. Look at white with green and look at the chlorophyll and look at the color of the leaf. White and yellow, look at the sun, look at the moon. White with orange, look at pumpkins and the seed, squash and its seed, etc. White with black, an example, take a look at the stars in the black sky. Now, the slain female Leviathan. It is written regarding Messiah that at the time they will make a Sukkot from the hide of the Leviathan, and I will expound its mystery. And our sages stated, God created the great sea monsters and all the living creatures of every kind that creep, which the waters brought forth in swarms, and all the winged birds of every kind, and God saw that it was good. Rashi states, Hataninin, the great sea serpents. The large fishes that are in the sea, and according to the statement of the Agada, Baba Batra 74b, it means here the Leviathan and its consort, which he created male and female. He, however, killed the female and preserved it in salt for the benefit of the righteous in the world to come. For had they been permitted to be fruitful and multiply, the world could not have endured because of them. We find the reference here in Rashi's commentary regarding Genesis. When commenting on the verse, Vayivara Elohim et hataninim hagedolim, and God created the great sea monsters, Rashi states, the sea monsters, hataninim, gigantic fish which are in the sea, and in the words of the Agada, this refers to the Leviathan and its mate, for he created them male and female, and he slew the female and salted her to preserve her, for the righteous and the future, the messianic world to come. Now, to understand what is this Leviathan that was mentioned, and what is it being salted and preserved for the world to come. As mentioned previously regarding Mashiach, and at that time they will make a sukkot from the hide of the Leviathan. The Zohar identifies the Leviathan as the following. Haititze, verse 67. In the meantime, the holy luminary, Rabbi Shimon, came. The faithful shepherd opened and said, Mishnah sages, who is the Leviathan? The holy luminary answered him, it is he whose grade is the central pillar, and a righteous man of whom it says that we consider his body, Tiferet, and members of the covenant, Yesod, as one. And he grows in the sea, which is the supernal Ima, namely Bina, which is a sea where the Holy One, blessed be he, is unified in 25 and 25 letters, in Shema of Israel, and in Blessed Be, the numerical value of which is that of Yam, an example, the sea, Yod Mem, that is 50. And who is in it? Being in that sea that is Bina, the faithful shepherd said, surely this Leviathan stands on the beach, and the world is poised on his fins. As Leviathan is, the righteous is an everlasting foundation. Mishlei 10:25. Holy luminary said, blessed is your portion, faithful shepherd. Thus the center column was slain, because it states here, who is the Leviathan? And they respond, he whose grade is the central pillar. Thus the center pillar was slain, an example, the center pillar of Asiya. And when analyzing the body, this is the secret of the legs, and the reason why our legs are split, because he created them male and female, and he slayed the female. We also learned that death means descent, and so the center column descended into the earth. We also read in the Talmud regarding death that one turns green. Thus the grass, reeds, trees, etc. rise in the secret of the center column, branching to the two sides, and are in the secret of that green. For this reason, the Yesod, an example, the genitals of each thing sustains the grass, trees, etc. in the secret of refuse. As Malchus, an example of Sia, was connected to Yesod before its descent. And so we see, for example, in the human body, 3 levels, Berea, the torso, which is Yetzirah, and the legs, which are the level of Asiya. And when analyzing the level of the legs, it says the female of the Leviathan was slain, the female hinting to the level of Asiya, and the Leviathan hinting to the center pillar. Thus, we find that the center pillar was slain, an example, removed and descended. So our legs are split because the center column is not here. And it descended, and our sages say in the Talmud that when someone dies, they turn green. And thus the center pillar is in the secret of the reed, and the secret of trees, and the secret of blades of grass, etc., which take up the color green. And it was stated here that they're sustained by the secret of Yesod, because Yesod is the place by which it was originally attached. An example, the center column was originally attached to this place, an example to Yesod, which is the male, but the female was slain. And so then, therefore, what emerges from Yesod, an example, when we urinate and excrement, these things actually sustain the trees, which are the secret of that center column. An example, the trees are sustained by manure, and plants are sustained by manure. And so this is used in farming techniques where we use dung in order to fertilize the soil. And also the urine, which is in the secret of grades of phosphorus, which help adjust pH levels. And ultimately, the trees, or the plant of the center column, is sustained by these things because it was originally connected to these things. And so understand that the center column is yellow. Thus we urinate yellow, our stomach acid is yellow, the phlegm in our lungs are yellow, our teeth plaque is yellow, our earwax is yellow, our eye crust is yellow, our boogers are yellow. Malchus is the secret of the color brown, and consider how we poop brown. It has been explained, males are the secret of the right column, which is white. Thus every male produces white from Yesod, the reproductive organ. And every female is from the secret of the left column, which is red. And why we learn that every female produces red from Yesod, the Yesod of the body. Now, why is Malkuth associated with the color brown in the secret of the dung, which emerges from Yesod? Is this connected, as it was just explained about it being slain, etc.? Because there are 4 legs to the throne, and they are Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, and Malkut. Chesed is the color blue. Gevurah is the color red, and Tiferet is the color yellow. Now, when you combine the colors, blue, red, and yellow, you create the color brown. Brown is thus the secret of the Malkut, and thus Malkut, which is the secret of Kal Maves, all dead, emerges in the secret of excrement, because poop is an assemblage of all that which is dead, Kal Maves, and is the secret of the color brown, being the secret of the 4th leg, being the combinations of blue, red, and yellow, as is shown here. Now these 3 pillars also manifest themselves in the secret of the eye. And so we find that the eye is in the secret of white, yellow, and red. So we see very clearly the 3 pillars. As we see, Malkuth is associated with the brown that emerges. We also see that the reproductive organ produces these colors. An example, white, the males, red, the females, and yellow from the center. An example, urination. But we see the combination of the 3 pillars being white, red, and yellow also in the secret of the eye. An example, the white of the eye, and then the white of the eye can turn red, an example when it is irritated, and it can also turn yellow, an example when a person is sick. So we see the combination of these things. Now Chokmah and Bina and Da'as are the secret of Abba, Ima, and Zerampin, as it explained. We see here, Chokmah, Bina, and Da'as are the secret of Abba, Ima, and Zerampin, as mentioned in Cha'azenu, verse 88. These, father, mother, and son, are called Chokmah, Bina, and Da'as. In book 22 of the Zohar, it states the following. Da'at, which is Zerampin, that unites Chokmah and Bina, that are Abba and Ima. These, father, mother, and son, are called Chokmah, Bina, and Da'at. Thus, the upper 3 are the secret of human beings. Thus form the aspect of Abba. Some people are white, and from the aspect of Ima, some people are brown, and from the aspect of Da'at, some people are yellow. These being the 3 pillars, as was just mentioned. It has also been made known to you that the lower 7 Sefirot are the secret of 7 days under the mother, Bina, called mother. Thus from this we learn that animals, blue, some are red, some are yellow, some are green, some are orange, some are black, etc. And consider this tikkun very carefully. Thus we see 7 days under the mother refer to the lower 7 Sefirot, which are the aspect of the 7 colors. Why are people not green? Why are people not orange? Why are people not blue? Well, the answer is because the root of the human being is not from the lower 7 Sefirot. The root of the human beings are from Abba, Ima, and Zerampin, which are called father, mother, and son, and are the secret of white, red, which is the secret of brown that derives from that red, and yellow. And so we find that people are in the secret of these 3 colors, and animals are in the secret of the lower 7 colors. Now regarding Malkuth and the Partsufim of Leah and Rachel, which emerge from Da'at and Tiferet, as it is known, Malkuth is called Et, which refers to the 22 letters. It is also stated in the Zohar that Malkuth ascends through the entire center column. Thus we find 22 letters are spoken in the mind, out of the mouth, from the lungs, manifested in the secret of the baby in the womb, and emerges through Yesod in the secret of birth. Thus we see that Malkuth, an example Et, is found in each of these places. So we find that the 22 letters are along the center column of the body. We see that our mind utilizes 22 letters, our tongue utilizes 22 letters, they originate in our lungs, the 22 letters, in the stomach or the womb, where the baby is conceived in the secret of Eitzal Eitz, the tree on top of tree, which is formed of the divine pattern of the 22 letters, and Yesod of the body of the center column, which of course is the giving birth of the baby in reference to those 22 letters. To continue, it is known that the Netzach, Hod, and Yesod of Ima are the Chokmah, Bina, Da'as of Zerampin. And behold, the Netzach, Hod, and Yesod of the woman is the location where the baby, in example Zerampin's brains, Chokmah, Bina, Da'as, are developed. At birth, it emerges in the secret of a side Partsufim, cast on its belly, which is the secret of Malkut. Then it is lifted to the Chesed, Gevur, and Tifreth of its mother, in example the chest, where it suckles and strengthens its own Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and afterwards it walks. And from here, it draws from the upper light of its mother, in example speaks from the intellect, face to face as it were. And consider carefully what I've written here. It is known that the Netzach, Hod, Yesod of the woman, an example the Partsufim of Ima, create the brains of Zerampin. And so we see here, in this tikkun, we see that the Netzach, Hod, and Yesod of Ima, as we see Netzach Da'ima, Hod Da'ima, Yesod Da'ima, form the Chokmah. So Netzach forms Chokmah, Hod forms Bina, and Yesod is forming Da'at. The significance of this, and here is Zerampin, is that the brains, an example of Chokmah, Bina, Da'at of a baby, develops in between the Netzach, Hod, Yesod of its mother. That would refer to the two hips and the genitals, which would be the Netzach, Hod, Yesod of its mother. During this time, the 9 months of pregnancy, the baby brain is developed. An example, the Chokmah, Bina, and Da'at of the baby. The evidence as to why it is considered 9 months will now be explained. Understand that Ima in general is called by the name Elohim, and the numerical value of the word Elohim is 86. 86 is roughly 3 months, and thus the baby receives the light from these 3 vessels during the time of pregnancy. 86 for Netzach, 86 for Hod, and 86 for Yesod, in which time its Chokmah, Bina, Da'as is developed. This is the secret of the 9 months of pregnancy. 3 months roughly for Netzach, 3 months roughly for the lights of Hod, and 3 months for the lights of Yesod. At this time, the brains of the baby are developed, and it is birthed and emerges. From here, the baby, then after having emerged from the Netzach, Hod, Yesod, is lifted up to the chest of the mother, an example, or Chesed, Gevur, Tifreth. An example, at the time of suckling, for the first stage is called Ibur, and the second stage is called Yanuk. And this is the time of breastfeeding. And at that time, the baby draws the light of its mother's Chesed, Gevur, and Tifreth through the suckling of breastfeeding. At that time, the baby develops its own Chesed, Gevura, Tifreth, Netzach, Hod, meaning its arms and its legs. And so after the period of breastfeeding, the legs and arms, being its own Chesed, Gevur, Tifreth, Netzach, Hod, are strengthened, and it begins to crawl, and it begins to walk. And at this point, it no longer needs to derive lights from Chesed, Gevur, and Tifreth as it did before, but now it then begins to draw the lights from the higher mentality of its mother and its father. An example, the brains, Chokmah, Bina, Da'as. And so it begins to communicate to the mother, mochin to mochin, and speech to speech. And so then therefore, it talks to the mother to draw down the lights of the intellect and strengthen its own brain, and similarly its own speech. And in this likeness, it is revealed that the lights of Ima enter into the lights of Zer. And we see this through the 3 stages of pregnancy, of suckling, and of maturity. So this brings us to our conclusion of this section of Likutei. The next section is called Sefer Hasod Harazin Hasatan. And this will be an incredibly in-depth, deep dive into some of the loftiest mysteries ever revealed of the Sitra Achra. This will begin our next video series. With that being said, contemplate very carefully the many powerful keys that were revealed in this video. Consider the roots of the colors, how people are in the secrets of white, brown, and yellow. Consider why people aren't green or orange or blue. Consider why the animals are all of these colors in the secret of 7 days under the mother. Consider how everything turns to black, rotting turns to black. Consider the secret of the Simsum, the restriction. Consider the secrets of white mixing with every color, etc. Consider the secret of why your legs are split. Consider the stages of creation and development. All of these things were laid down in generalities in today's lesson. That being said, as David HaMelech said, open my eyes that I may behold the wonders of your Torah. Shalom and Selah.